Hello, fire goddesses, and welcome to episode 90 of the Reclaim Your Fire podcast. In today's episode, I am really looking forward to introducing you to my next guest. I had an amazing, wonderful, lively conversation and an expansive conversation with nutritionist, author, and coach Lizzy Cangro. As you will quickly discover, Lizzy has this passion and ability to really help her clients and the people that she works with ditch the inner mean girl. It was so much fun to speak with Lizzy, and what I really appreciated also is the name of her book, which is called Reclaim the Rebel, is really similar to the name of this podcast, Reclaim Your Fire. So I trust and I know that you will really enjoy this episode today. I feel like many of the goddesses listening are going to resonate with many of the points that Lizzy makes in this episode today, especially if you are somebody that has struggled or you are struggling with dieting or trying to discover what foods work best for your body. You know, the messages in society are just awful, and Lizzy is doing some really great work to really help change that narrative. So without further ado, please welcome Lizzy Cangro. Hello, fire goddesses. Welcome to the Reclaim Your Fire podcast. My name is Angela Noel, and I am a prosperity coach for the newly awakened or awake curious, driven overachiever, and overdoer. After running a successful acupuncture practice in Boston for 12 years, I decided to hang my hat by closing the practice and pursue what it is that I'm really meant to do in this world, and that is to serve humanity online on a global scale. Using my background in Chinese medicine, along with the brain science of habits, spirituality, and divine masculine and feminine energy balance, I am here to help you not just understand, but know how powerful you are and that you are the person who is responsible for having the finances, inner peace, radiant health, and energy, aka the fire, in your life that you've always desired. My intention with this podcast is to serve humanity, no matter what gender you identify as, to help bring out the divine feminine goddess in each and every one of you. As you probably are already aware, the world is changing and is begging for the goddess to come out in each and every one of you. So, fire goddesses, stay tuned. Hello, fire goddesses, and welcome to the Reclaim Your Fire podcast. My name is Angela Noel, and I am a host of the podcast. And today I'm really excited to introduce my next guest, Lizzy Cangro. Hi, Lizzy. How are you?
Hi, Angela. It's great to see you. Great to be here. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to your listeners for tuning in.
Sweet. So, Lizzy, why don't you tell the goddesses listening who you are and how you help people?
People refer to me as the self-love sister, which I love because I help empower women to really silence their inner mean girl, ditch the diets, and to confidently step into the body that they love. And I do this through a combination of rebellious acts in nutrition, movement, and mindset. And so when you asked me to be a guest on this podcast, I was just, yes, of course, reclaiming your fire just really aligns to everything that I stand for. So, I highly value the concept of women just stepping into their power, stepping into their fire, stepping into their confidence, because I feel like we're ready, right? It's such a powerful, potent time. And so
yes,
it's exciting to be part of this space.
And are you noticing, it just feels like, I feel like every day it's just like this buildup. There's more and more people that are reaching out, or there's this, it's also very energetic. There's this curiosity, and like what you said, people are wanting change. They're desiring, they realize that their life as it was is just not working. And I am so grateful to be part of this movement. It feels like a movement to me. It feels very, very exciting to me.
Yeah, it really, really does. And it's on so many levels as well. It's on kind of the macro level with a lot of things going on in the world. And then on a kind of smaller scale, on, you know, a community level, and then in an internal level, there's this kind of essence that I'm kind of sensing from others who are kind of getting these nudges, these kind of subtle taps of, oh, I'm ready to make a change. And I'm not sure what that is, but there's definitely an energy around it, as you say.
Yeah, I totally get you. I've been hearing from like my oldest childhood friends, like it's been amazing to reconnect with these people that I've known like almost my whole life. And they're like, I need help, like, and these are people that maybe lived a totally different lifestyle, right? And they're like, whatever it is, I know I need it. And I just feel like it's such an honor, first of all, to be able to hear from old friends like this. And just, it's a testament to really see that people, it's almost like this, like, it's like a pull, right? It may not even be totally conscious. It's just this knowing, right? Which, if I understood you correctly, would you say
Yeah,
that's true?
absolutely. And I've had similar experiences where, you know, because I've moved countries, I'm not in contact with some of the friends that I was in contact with as much. But when we do get in contact, I'm finding that more and more. So, you know, I'm not necessarily seeing these people, but, you know, a friend reached out to me maybe a couple of months ago and said, oh my goodness, you wouldn't believe the spiritual experience that I had. And we hadn't talked about spirituality before. And I really admired her for doing that, because it can be a very vulnerable thing if you haven't talked to someone about that before. And she just completely opened up and said, well, you know, after reading your book, I then went on this retreat, and you know, it really took things to the next level for me. And now I'm embodying kind of the divine masculine and divine feminine, and I'm looking at moon cycles. And we were on the phone for
Wow.
probably 2.5 hours, and it just felt so juicy and rich and just beautiful, as you say. You know, what an honor for people who you've known for, you know, for years,
Yeah.
to come and to kind of have that connection with us.
Yeah.
It was gorgeous. And
Yeah.
it's so cool to hear that more and more people are having those experiences. um so yeah.
I totally get that. Yeah, it's been a really beautiful thing. And I wanted to expand on that because I want to really highlight for anybody listening, if you're just feeling this pull and you just can't explain it, that is an invitation from your divine feminine wisdom, your intuition, to pay attention. Because in society, I talk a lot about, like, breaking society norms, right? We're not taught to lean into to our inner knowing. Inner knowing, what is that? Intuition? Yeah, I don't do that, right? Or I'm not intuitive. I know somebody like that. That's not me. But this is an invitation for you to really, if you're having this longing or this nudge or whatever you want to call it, that is your way in. Like, how exciting is that? Is that we each, as individual humans, have this wisdom center. We don't really need anything from the outside. We all have it within us. So beautiful, Lizzy. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing. And that's really something that I just love as a part of this, is that the more we share and the more that we kind of connect, the more powerful it gets. You know, the more it's kind of okay in inverted commas, because it's always okay, but the more people feel comfortable in kind of following that pull, that kind of, you know, nudge feeling in our bones to awaken to that energy and to rebel and to go, okay, you know, I'm being told by society or the diet industry that I need to, you know, lose weight and take this supplement and that, go on this program, and that doesn't feel good to me. I'm not going to do that anymore. And so I think there's so much power in that, in the ability to kind of, you know, have that connection and that movement that is, that you're saying that, you know, so correctly, that we're really kind of developing, is that kind of trusting that inner knowing and going with it and going, oh, I don't need the external anymore necessarily. This is very freeing. This feels good. This feels light.
And that's like, yeah, I love how you said the word freeing, because I think for a lot of people that can be terrifying, right? If it's like you said, like sometimes people, like through sharing and the importance of sharing, it's so important because we feel less alone. Like we realize we're not alone in this world, and it's, you know, there's nothing to be afraid of when it comes to this shift that's happening. I'm getting chills. And this is a great segue to Lizzy on your work, because I'd love to chat about what you've been up to. So I definitely want to talk about the book, but I would love to just first of all chat about like the ditching of the diet. Like what I feel like maybe a lot of listeners might know that, but what does that mean for you, and how do you help your clients with ditching the diet?
So what I see a lot as a nutritionist and wellness coach is people coming to me wanting two things: either to lose weight or eat healthily. And they've yo-yoed for years and years and years through programs and products, and they just are frustrated. They feel stuck. They feel like they're struggling. They feel like there's something wrong with them. And ultimately, they feel not good enough. Mm-hmm. And this is a lie that gets perpetuated by the diet industry, because if we felt good enough, then we wouldn't need their products and programs anymore, right? So yeah,
amen.
So buying into this, we're just cycling through this belief that we're not good enough, and over 90% of diets fail. And really, the reason for that is a multitude of things. But what I really want women to feel empowered in doing, and men, but I mainly attract women, is to ditch that cycle of dieting. I'm not saying that we can't ever want to change our bodies, but it's the energy of I'm not good enough. It's ditching that. It's ditching the mentality of the diet industry. It's saying, well, I am good enough. It's okay to want to change my body, but what are the reasons behind it? You know, is it from a place of self-love because, you know, I am having a bunch of health conditions and my body is not in a good state, so I really want to lose a bit of weight so that I can spend more time with my kids or my grandkids, etc., instead of, oh, I'm not good enough because the diet industry tells me that in order to be accepted and loved, I need to look like a stick insect, that sort of thing. So really, it's coming back to that intention and the energy behind the diet industry versus what feels good, what feels free, what feels joyful, what brings us confidence.
Yeah, and listening to you talk, what I was hearing a lot of is like that, teeter-totter that so many people get stuck on forcing versus allowing, right? Like, whereas the diet industry is all about forcing and like basically other people's standards that we're trying to live up to, whoever that person is or a group of people is, right? And I love that you're stepping into this and bringing not only your background, but showing your clients what's possible in a really powerful way so that they can know what feels good in their body. And the name of your book is I love the name. So, and I feel like this is kind of on par with what we're talking about, right? With like being rebellious, like you're rebelling against what? The industry, right? Like, yeah. Societal norm.
Against the industry and your own inner mean girl, because once we have the external of I'm not good enough, we also have that internal inner mean girl saying you're not good enough. And she used to scream at me on a daily basis saying you're not good enough, you're not good enough at this, you're not you're not pretty enough. That was my big story and hang up. And so this kind of system of the external diet industry and the world saying you're not good enough, and then that internal inner mean girl saying you're not good enough, that's just creating so much inner frustration, pain, anxiety, stress. And as you were saying, it's time to rebel against that, and that is what the book is about. It's reclaiming that rebelliousness and saying, oh well, I was actually born loving my body. Just look at babies.
Yes.
Babies are obsessed with their bodies. They love it. They just kind of so in awe with their bodies. So it's not a case of achieving love for our bodies. It's actually a matter of reclaiming it. Yes. By rebelling against the diet industry and our own inner mean girl. And that's fun. Yeah. Contrary to what the diet industry is prescribing us and forcing us, which, as you say, feels really just yuck. Yeah. Rebelling is fun. I think everybody wants to be a rebel, don't they?
I think everybody does too, Lizzy. I would have to agree with you. I think deep down, everybody wants to be free. And I think there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of stigma around, what other people are going to think. And to your point about not being good enough, I would love if we could just dive deep into that, because I feel like it's such a deeply rooted belief. Like, I think, what are the top beliefs like about that when we're talking about like self-destruction? I'm not good enough and I'm not loved, right? Those are the two. I'm not loved. No one loves me. So for people listening and they're like, no, I'm good enough. I'm a confident person, right? I'm good enough. Sometimes you can be the most confident person in the world. I did a podcast episode on self-worth a few weeks ago and still not be confident. So I would love, like, for people that are like, yeah, I'm good enough. I'm good there, Lizzy and Angela. What are some signs and like indications that you might not be good enough? Like, how does it show up with, in the work that you do?
That's a really good question. And I think it very much varies from person to person. So you may feel confident in some aspects of your life and feel good enough, say, for example, in your professional career. But then when you get home and you look in the mirror, you start picking your body apart. And it might not be the very obvious, oh my gosh, I'm so fat, and that kind of stories, but it might just be like, looking at the bags under your eyes and going, oh God, I look so tired. And just the kind of small little insidious things that can add up to not feeling confident in your body. It may be a case that, you decide to go on a diet because, you want to, there's this particular outfit that you have in your closet, and when you put it on, you didn't feel good, and, you start, saying things like, oh, I need to lose weight. I need to lose weight. That is kind of the very not so obvious ways that we can kind of push down our own confidence.
Yeah.
It may be that you actually do feel confident in your body, but you're not trusting yourself with your food. It may be, that you are, you know, you cut out food groups because you think that they are bad for you, but there's no medical evidence or no, backing behind that. So, for example, I didn't trust this is actually how I got into being a nutritionist and how I started on my whole journey to self-love was when I was 14 years old. And I mentioned this in my book, this story. My granddad died all of a sudden from a heart attack. And I thought I had some sort of role in that because a couple of days before, to make him feel better because he was going through chemotherapy, I made him a lemon drizzle cake, which was his favorite. And he ate all of the lemon drizzle cake, and a couple of days later, he passed away. And in my naivety, I thought that somehow that lemon drizzle cake had caused this heart attack. And I started to research. Right. And I started to research all of this stuff. At the time, it was magazines about how to be healthy because I didn't want that to happen. And the intention behind it was all, well intended. But the more that I looked into things and looked outside of me for advice, the more I didn't trust my own self. And so my confidence in being able to nourish my body and listen to it diminished. And so, low confidence can turn up in that respect. And for me, I was a very extreme case, but I developed a 10-year eating disorder as a result of it. But you don't have to have an eating disorder to have low confidence in your food. You can have disordered eating patterns. You could question yourself when you had a slightly bigger meal than usual. You go, oh gosh, I should have not had so much to eat, or
Oh my gosh.
not listening to your hunger and completely
Yeah.
starving yourself. All of those things are signs that you're not confident in your own body's ability. Another example, when you're working out, that's another thing that I mention in the book is we often move for punishment and not pleasure. So I see this all the time. Either women are not confident in working out at all and sort of avoid the gym or avoid their favorite ways to move. For me, it's dancing. I love dancing. But some women just don't feel confident doing that, so we'll avoid it. So if you're having these avoidance behaviors, then that's a sign of low body confidence. There's such a huge spectrum, and all of it just feels so heavy.
That is, thank you for sharing your personal story, and also just all the examples. And I think that a lot of people listening, goddesses, will relate. I was listening to you talk and I'm like, yeah, I've done that. I've done that. Oh, I still need to work on that a little bit. And yeah. And, as far as your method or your book. So if you have somebody that's coming in and they're showing signs of not loving themselves, and they need some help with weight loss or weight release, how would you work with them? How would you redirect them to having more self-love and self-worth?
Yeah. So I think it's really understanding, first of all, the root of these beliefs. And well, first of all, actually, it's awareness. It all comes back to awareness. So what we just discussed, having that awareness of, oh yeah, well, maybe in this area of my life, I'm not being nice to my body. I'm not being kind to it. I'm not as confident as maybe I would like to be. So having that awareness, and also the awareness of the things that we're telling ourselves, the behaviors that we're acting out to reinforce this sometimes it's self-abuse. So having that awareness, we can then implement different rebellious acts depending on what areas we need to address to increase our body confidence. So for a lot of people, it is really down to changing their stories. You know, we talk about it a lot, both of us in our circles, and it's so important. And that's why so many people are talking about it, is if we're able to turn that negative story into something more positive and be consistent at choosing the more positive stories, just like when you wake up in the morning, you can choose whatever you want in your closet. And what we can do is we can do that with our thoughts. We can literally look at our thoughts and go, oh, does that thought fit with me and align with me and how I want to feel in my body? If not, you can put it back. So picking those thoughts and doing it consistently enough is huge. And that's really how I made a huge shift very, very quickly in terms of how I perceive myself. Was just, I say just because it sounds so simple. It's that consistent practice of choosing to tell yourself nice things about your body. And I said it sounds simple because it can be very difficult to do when you've had decades of this self-abuse, either, you know, through your behaviors or through your thoughts. So the other aspect is really giving yourself grace and having that self-compassion. And we're very good as women and a lot of men being kind to other people, and being, you know, the givers. But are we actually being that to ourselves? You know, that goes back to the inner mean girl. Are we being kind? Are we giving ourselves that grace that I mentioned, so that we have the space to adopt those more positive stories? Because some days the inner mean girl is going to be screaming louder than others. And it still happens even through years of personal development.
Exactly. And I feel like that can be a misconception sometimes, where people are like, you know, I get asked this all the time, like, how do you, you know, like there's this perception like, you know, I've got it all figured out. And I'm like, I don't have it all figured out. Like, I still have my days where I have to work through this stuff. And it's usually, by the way, every single day. So I love how you said, like, you know, first of all, everything you can always choose. And one thing that I really like to drive home is that, you know, if you chose wrong today, if you chose wrong for lunch, you always have an opportunity to choose again for your snack. You can choose, you know, to have more water, like right after lunch. Like you can always re-choose and choose again, because it's not like, you know, would you expect to, if you didn't play piano, right? Would you expect to just walk up to a piano and start playing like Beethoven?
No.
Out of your head? No, you have to practice. So this is a practice. It's like the yoga, the people who are afraid to do yoga because they're like, oh, I can't do it. This is my favorite objection, right? I'm not flexible. Well, but that's because it's a yoga practice. Like, so, you know, we're all here learning our lessons, and, you know, it sometimes, like, it can take longer time than others. But what I really like what you said, Lizzy, is that it doesn't need to take that long, does it? Can we just talk about that a little bit? Because I think that's a misconception when people want to make change, like, oh, I don't have time, like that's going to be really hard. And, oh, you know, so what are your thoughts on things being hard or just taking a long time when changing your life?
Yeah, that's another story. Guess what?
Totally.
If you say it's going to be hard, then guess what? It's going to be hard.
Yes.
So first of all, being aware of that and changing that one. And secondly, you know, can you think of any examples in your life or anyone else's life where it hasn't taken years and years and years? It's been very, very quick. And the circles that we're in and the transformation that we've seen, people can change in a matter of weeks, and change, have a huge shift. So another story that I mentioned in the book was what I call lovingly Glasses Gate, which happened whilst I think it was right at the start of when we kind of started connecting and knowing each other. But I was running along. So remember, my limiting belief, my big story was I'm not pretty enough. And I used glasses to hide my face because, I had this negative belief. I was running along with my partner, and it was, during the mask wearing phase where everybody had to do it in public, even outside. So we were running along, and I was breathing really heavily, and the mask was funneling up my air and my hot breath into my glasses. So they were steaming up because it was cold and all of that kind of stuff. So I went to adjust my frames, and the frame broke off in my hand. This was halfway through a run, so I was like, shit. Not only because this was a really horrible time to not be able to see anything, but also because I literally had to confront years of this story of I'm not pretty enough and this behavior of trying to hide. So after I cried my eyes out for a day, I went into the group that we were a part of, and I posted this selfie of me completely, a wreck because I was so distraught. The universe had given me this signal that, all right, it's time to make this change, that nudge that we were talking about at the start. And I posted a photo of me and said, I feel really ugly and this, that, and the other. But I'm committing for the rest of the program to post a daily selfie. And so I did that. And literally
I remember that.
14 days, I did it for 14 days. And I felt so much better in myself, in showing up, in having my photo taken, of being seen. And that happened within 14 days. And I'm not saying that after that, life was rosy and I never had an insecure thought.
Yeah.
I had a huge shift, and that was in 2 weeks.
And what it feels like to me is that there was this like decision that you were going to commit to loving yourself, right? Because I think that's what's behind a lot of people who don't post pictures of themselves, or they post pictures of, just their kids on their Facebook profile or their cat, or they don't like to be in pictures, right? It's this, right, what we were talking about earlier. I don't like the way I look. I don't like the way I smile. I don't like this and that and blah, 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 blah. And that is really an amazing story of being courageous and showing. I remember that. Now that you're telling me the story, I remember that challenge.
Thank you.
Did you start? Were you the one that started the selfie challenge? I feel like there were a bunch of people doing the selfie challenge.
There were a bunch of people doing the selfie challenge, and I don't think I can own the the idea, but it was very powerful for me, and it was a matter of choosing, because I was in so much pain. It really hurt to look at myself and not look like what I saw, but I knew something had to change. So I made that decision. And another I think key component was that I had the support of a community behind me who I felt comfortable in, who I knew would support me, and who I felt like I could be vulnerable to. And I think that is huge. So I mention it in the book, like another part of this whole journey to loving ourselves is having a cheer squad, is having that group of people who are going to cheer us on through it. Because we are the ones who have to choose. We are the ones who have to do the hard things, the things that don't necessarily feel comfortable all the time. But by having people behind us, it does feel the energy just is so much easier to actually to step into. So as I say, it doesn't have to be hard, but if we resist, if we try and do it on our own, if we don't listen to those nudges, that's when it can feel hard.
Yeah, I love how you mentioned the importance of community, right? Because I feel like when a lot of people struggle, the shame kicks in, right? And most people tend to go inward or isolate, which is, only going to perpetuate more of that suffering. So I love how you brought up the importance of community and finding that community that really will bring you up. And I know that just with working with clients, that's been like, that's kind of a concern for some of them, like breaking away, right, from people that don't build them up, or maybe, they're in this friend group that they've known these girls or men, whoever, for years, and they're like, but it's not serving me anymore. And community is everything. And I feel like with the internet, because we were in the same, online community, we've never met in person. There's so much opportunity for finding your people. Like, it doesn't have to be the people in your town or, there's so many opportunities to meet people from all over the world that are like-minded. So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, and it's such a beautiful opportunity as opposed to it feeling kind of almost. I've been through a similar situation where, as I've evolved, some of the relationships that I used to have kind of fallen away, and there was this tendency to kind of think, oh, that's really sad. But actually, it's kind of exciting because as you kind of move out of those relationships, you can kind of step into more aligned relationships with others. And you're also doing the other person a favor because they're able to have that space to find more aligned relationships. So
yes,
there really is so much possibility
yeah, and letting go of those things, whatever it is, a relationship, a friendship, a habit, whatever it is that you want to let, that you realize is not serving you, by letting go of those stagnant things, you're inviting in more fresh, clean relationships, better energy, whatever it is that you want. And I love to talk about that because, letting go is, I feel like, letting go of attachment, right? Was it the Buddha that says like that's the greatest cause of suffering is attachment? So by letting go of these attachments, there's so much more possibility that can come in for us.
Yeah, and for me, it was also letting go of some of the connections that I had made online. Instagram is the place where I tend to kind of connect with people, and so I'll you follow people, so you don't really know them, but you're connected to them. And there were some things that I was noticing that were, and some accounts that were perpetuating that belief that I'm not good enough. And I mentioned in the book, sometimes the kindest thing that you can do is just to unfollow. And it's not any judgment against anybody. It's not judgment against you. It's not judgment against them. It's just you protecting your inner peace.
Yeah.
So I think that is huge as well in this kind of time where there is that potential to connect with others who are really aligned with you, but there's also the potential to kind of have that perpetuating belief of I'm not good enough thrown at you every single time you look at your mobile phone or laptop or whatever.
Yeah, I love that. Is such a beautiful, like, simple example too of like something that you can just do every day. Like, hey, you know, this person, and it may not even be anything intentional that that person is doing or saying, but it could just make you feel like you're going into your comparitis or your imposter syndrome. And if there's no reason for you to be following that person other than you feel like you should or have to, then thank you, goodbye. That's such a, I mean, I've done that too. And it's been so freeing to not have that energy. And it's Instagram, you know, it's something that so many people that are listening have.
Just do your Ariana Grande and just go, thank you, next.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. So you wrote a book. Congratulations. And I'm looking at your poster in the background. It came out in December of 2021. So tell the audience a little bit more about it, and you know, what can they discover if they read your book?
Yeah, so thank you. It was that was something that was really guided by intuition as well. So as I mentioned, I really help empower women to ditch the diets and silence their inner mean girl. And this book is really your guide to doing that. It contains 12 rebellious acts to achieve that unconditional love for your body so that you can have the inner peace, have the joy, have the freedom, have the confidence that we all have a right to, that we were all born with. And so it's called Reclaim the Rebel. And it really is that. It is reclaiming your right to having unconditional love for your body through these rebellious acts in your nutrition movement and mindset. And it's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And yeah, it's really something that I wanted. It's fairly short. You can kind of see it's not very thick. And it's designed so that it is your best friend on your bookshelf or even in your handbag. It has exercises, very simple, powerful exercises, so that you can implement the rebellious acts. So it's not just talking at you, it's giving you really real exercises to make those changes really quickly, and to not make it hard, make it fun, make it easy. And so, yeah.
Oh, that is so exciting. Congratulations. And I feel like a lot of the goddesses listening are really going to have a lot of ahas and just benefit from listening to this conversation. So congratulations on your book. I'm going to put everything about Lizzy in the show notes. So if you want to know more, go to the show notes. But just if people are like, they want to know right now, what are the best ways for people to connect with you, Lizzy?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you again for having me. And, you know, it's always a pleasure to kind of connect with a woman who is so passionate about, you know, other women being able to feel confident and step into their power. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd love to connect with the goddesses listening. If they like to do that, the best place is Instagram at Nutrition by Lizzy. Lizzy's with a Y. And yeah, just come on over and say hi.
Awesome, Lizzy. Thank you so much. And one other question before we end this. I just want people to know how, do you do group programs? Do you work with clients one-on-one? A little bit of everything. Okay, you do it all. Okay, sweet. So
yes,
if you like, go ahead.
I work one-to-one with clients for 6 months to really create that whole transformation in confidence. And my goal is that you will never need a diet or program ever again. Because as I mentioned, we don't want to perpetuate that limiting belief of I'm not good enough. We don't want to spend all of our time and money on diets and programs. So that is my my signature one-on-one coaching. And then I have a group program called the Reclaim the Rebel Academy. And that's where we really dive into the 12 rebellious acts that I mentioned in my Reclaim the Rebel book.
Awesome. That sounds so amazing, Lizzy. And I love the impact that you're making in this world with your work. A lot of people need this right now. So thank you.
Oh, Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, Angela.
Appreciate you too. All right, goddesses. So make sure to go find Lizzy online and check out the show notes. And until next time, remember to be radiant, be powerfully authentic, and know that you can reclaim your fire at any time. Take care. Hi, this is Angela Noel, and thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you have found value in listening to this podcast, I would be so grateful if you could kindly share this podcast with those you care about. Please help me spread the word of empowerment and possibility and expansion by sharing this podcast. Or you could also leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Remember to follow me on Instagram at I am Angela Noel, or you could go to my website at www.angelanoelinternational.com to learn more about my work and to find out how you can work with me. Thank you very much.